Thank you for tuning in to the virtual candidate debates hosted by Teaching for the Culture. My name is Bianca Goolsby, and I'm so excited to be with you this evening. We have an action packed list of events in October covering Hillsborough to Manatee County. Thank you for being intentional in this work because our children deserve the best, and they deserve the best people in the seats that control the future and future generations to come. Due to the pandemic, we wanted to change up the format to allow you to ask the questions to the candidates as if we were having an in-person event. This event is live and is streaming on Facebook and YouTube. The link will be provided in the comments for you to have the access to click and join us. You will then be afforded the opportunity to ask a candidate a question. Please keep your questions brief and please have the right energy and intentionality when asking the candidates questions. Thank you again for tuning in to the virtual debates. And if you're here for the replay, thank you for joining and watching what was said. I always say the three keys are accountability, transparency, and integrity. And it's up to you. Your children are counting on you on picking the best people for our school board seats.
Welcome, everyone. I am Kimberly Skukulek, educator in Pinellas County Schools and also the VP of, this is my cat Jingles. I'm also the VP of Advocacy for the Pinellas County Council PTA. We are here tonight with Laura Hine. This debate was created to give voters an opportunity to ask the candidates questions as if we were in a real person event. The link is posted in the comments for you to join the live stream and ask questions. Candidate Stephanie Meyer was invited to the event but didn't RSVP and therefore has declined to participate. But Laura, we welcome you today and we're excited to have this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself to kick us off tonight?
Sure, yes, I'm happy to. And then I'm really actually excited about this format as we discuss that people are going to be able to ask questions. I love to talk about education. I love to hear other people's ideas, concerns, questions, and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to that. I will just go ahead and introduce myself for those of you who haven't read about me or I haven't met along the way. So my name is Laura Hine. I'm a candidate for the District 1 seat, which here in Pinellas County, that is one of the at-large seats. Our school board is broken up into, or has 7 seats. 4 of them are geographic based and 3 of them are at-large. And the one that I'm running for is the at-large seat. I would just mention to you that when you are thinking about who to vote for school board, as Bianca mentioned in the opening there, it's a really important decision because this person is going to serve on your school board for the next 4 years. So it's not just for today, but it's for the kinds of vital issues that we might face over the next 4 years, the opportunities, the challenges, and who knows what those would be, right? I mean, who could have imagined Marjorie Stoneman Douglas? Who could have imagined coronavirus and its impacts today? So I just think it's a very important election. They all are to consider. So just to give you a little sense of who I am, what my values are, a little bit more. So I was born and raised here in Tampa. My mother was a public school teacher. She was also our Girl Scout leader from 6 years old to my earning the Gold Award, which is like the Eagle Award. And my father had served in the Army, but then was in insurance and was our softball coach from when I was 6 years old to my playing Division I athletics in college. I went to public school for K-12. I was bused during integration when we still did that. And that's an important thing for me. I was raised with a sense of duty, a sense of looking around and seeing where we could give back. It was demonstrated by my parents, and it was further imbued in me in my 4 years at the U.S. Naval Academy, where I went to college. And shipmate self is a driving creed there. At Navy, I studied aerospace engineering. I interned at NASA. I went to the Army Airborne School. Women were about 8% of our graduating class. I served for 6 years as an officer in the Navy on ships out of San Diego mostly, deployed multiple times to the Middle East, twice with national tasking. When I came back home to Tampa, I became a licensed general contractor. If you've flown Southwest Airlines out of Tampa International Airport, you've seen my work, or most recently, the James Museum of Western and Wildlife Art in downtown St. Petersburg. I was the project director responsible for architecture and construction for that $65 million project of Tom and Mary James of Raymond James. About a year after the museum was open, Tom called me and asked me to consider being the director of the museum. And I said yes. And that's a position that I serve in now. Along the way, though, I fell in love with an amazing man a little bit later than most. I was busy, and I had two beautiful young children. And it was when my children came of age for school that I recognized the opportunities, shall we say, in public school. So our son, who's now 9, was in a private school here in St. Petersburg, and I would drive every day past our zoned elementary school and think, why don't we go here? And so I learned a lot. It was a Title I letter grade D school, 74% of the students economic disadvantaged, 50% minority. And I visited, I got to know the principal, the teachers, I got involved, I started a nonprofit. I sent my children there. They are thriving. The school is thriving. I became president of the PTA for a couple of years as well. And it's been amazing. The family, the community building, the support for our teachers. We had some mental health programs, sustainability, academic enrichment, a number of things. So I've spent hours with and supported and learned from our teachers, which I think is maybe one of the reasons I earned the endorsement of the Pinellas County Teachers Association. I've studied educational successes across models. I've been to Tallahassee. I've advocated for our schools. I've even been to Washington, D.C. around education. So in these years, I've been very involved in public education, and I believe I've had a positive impact. So I'd like to hear from you. I mean, I think there are significant things we can do better in public schools. Absolutely. Excellence and equity is number one. Very close right up there with it is our teachers. We have to support our teachers so that they are thriving. Get rid of some of these strictures that hold them tight and move out of this anesthetizing data-based mindset into a whole child learning, thriving mindset. And then, of course, there's the fiscal responsibility. We're a $1.7 billion budget. It's significant. I've managed hundreds of millions of dollars in my professional career, as well as led people. I have an MBA in finance and those kinds of things. So certainly fiduciary responsibility of taxpayer resources is something that I care a good deal about as well. So that might be too much already. I would love to answer questions. I'm sorry. So are there any questions?
No, you're good. That was a lot of good stuff. We do have a question. I think that person might come on. If not, I can certainly read that question. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read it. So this question comes from Bianca Kendall. The question says, what are your views on appropriate sex education throughout the K-12 curriculum?
So I believe that sex education has to be evidence-based, age-appropriate, communicated to parents with an opt-out option. There are 3 different philosophies around teaching sex education. There's abstinence only, there's what's called abstinence plus, and then there's comprehensive sex education. Right now in Pinellas County Schools, we are the abstinence plus model in the middle. And there's a few things I want to mention around this, because it's been really interesting the last few weeks, the amount of questions that have kicked up specifically around the human sexuality unit in 7th grade. And I have a lot of information about that. I'd be happy to share it with you. You can also call Ashley Grimes, who is the head of health at Pinellas County Schools, who will share all of the specific information around you about what is actually within the curriculum and taught in our schools. It's actually in our Florida statutes, in our required instruction, that we teach family health and again, and I could pull that out and read it to you. I really appreciate the interest around this topic in this season. I think it's important. I think, you know, some of us came from families that talk about this subject. I can tell you that I did. My mother was actually a teacher at the program for pregnant teenagers when there was such a thing over in Hillsborough County schools. And when I was in high school, I would actually go and tutor some of her students, porque yo hablo un poco español, and I could help them with their subjects and things like that. And so it was, I can tell you that these kinds of things were an early and often subject in our household, but that doesn't mean it's so. And so we've been fortunate that in the last couple of decades, we have seen a decrease in teenage pregnancy, but we've seen a rise in sexually transmitted diseases, which is certainly, we all know, is something that will stay with a child for their lifetime. We would love to think that these things aren't happening, but they are. And so what is the role? What is the role of public education in this? So I think it's an important question. What I want to leave you with is that it has to be evidence-based, age-appropriate. Parents must be communicated with, and they should have the option to opt out, which they currently do twice in the 7th grade year, first at the beginning of the year, and then prior to the start of the human sexuality unit. Information is sent home along with a form that you can easily opt out your child out of that content should you like to.
Thanks for that answer. We now have a live question, so I'm going to invite Jennifer to come on and ask her question. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Hi, yes, thank you. I'm multitasking here, so please forgive me. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yes, I can hear you great.
Okay. So yeah, I have some big concerns with the comprehensive sex education. And, you know, like you just said, this was a conversation that you had talked with your mom about. And I think a lot of parents really feel that it is a really sensitive topic, and there are a lot of parents who really are involved, and they want to know and have their hands on the curriculum. I would really like to know if you would consider sending the curriculum in its entirety to the parents so that they can see it and know what they're opting in or out of. And I was told that parents were not able to opt out. Now I know right now that CSE is in practice under the name of Abstinence Plus, but is it only going to be opt out during this time, or are you going to have opt out when it becomes actually CSE?
No, there is opt out now, but I don't know what you mean about CSE is currently in practice. That's not my understanding, and so I don't know.
That's my understanding that it's actually in place now in the schools. And it's being taught under the name of Abstinent Plus, but it is currently in use.
I think that's one of the things that's being said, Jennifer. I think there is a lot of misinformation out there. So I can post, or wherever I can post Ashley Grimes' email address and phone number, and you can talk with her directly, and she will tell you completely everything that is in the curriculum. I am happy to share with you the information that I have, absolutely, and I always will. And I think it's important for parents to be fully informed about what is being taught. And I know that it's available. I mean, I have the 7th grade health education overview right here. So I was talking with a parent of a 7th grader yesterday and an 8th grader earlier this week, and all of them, because I was calling around to say, have you been given the option to opt out? Because some people are saying that they can't. And they said, yes, we were given it twice. So I'm not sure. Do you have a 7th grader? Have you not been given information?
I have one who's, actually, sorry, yes, I do. Yes, I do. But my another question that I was really concerned about is, since the CSE curriculum is supported and financed by Planned Parenthood, I know that they have an ulterior motive and agenda, and I think a lot of parents would agree that they want the curriculum to be unbiased and filtered appropriately, and I think that really just raises great concern. There's one thing when you're educating on the anatomy of our body and what happens. And there's another thing when you're pushing them into a lifestyle that they're not actually ready for.
Sure. I hear you.
Do you feel that Planned Parenthood, they do have, it is a business, that is a business. They make money off of it. And I would just think that they would find ways to continue to advance their agenda, like I said.
So when I looked at the curriculum for this specifically, it came from a wide array of resources, right? It comes from a number of different resources. When our county is looking at the curriculum to find, it can come from a number of different places. I think people feel like, the word curriculum is used a lot and it's like this magic word, but they pull from a number of different resources. And I will certainly look further into that, because I definitely agree with you. We want unbiased, again, evidence-based, factual, unbiased information in our classrooms for sure. Thank you.
And one other question. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not taking up too much time. I was wondering, why is it that for the Pinellas County School Board, why does their normal curriculum budget not cover the PE and health curriculum, as that is of equal importance? Why are they allowing grants and other, like I said, other supported curriculum to come into the school system rather than going through their normal routes of curriculum choice?
I think it does go through their normal routes, the PE and health. When I spoke with Ashley Grimes, which again, I think you should call her. I have her phone number right here, because you're asking excellent questions, and a lot of them are the very same questions that I asked her. Let me see if I can find it. Definitely have her in my contacts in my phone.
While you're looking for that, and I would like her number, and I will definitely get in contact with her.
Yeah.
When I was looking at the curriculum and some of the things that it's talking about, and not to be graphic, but the extra explanation on use for condoms, where else they can go, and how else you can utilize them. I think that stuff is really over the top, unnecessary. And why would we want to discuss different genders and sexualities when they don't have a fully formed frontal lobe, and we really don't want kids to have sex before 18, and we're talking about K through 12. So why are we giving them all this extra information?
So that piece you mentioned about the barrier protection, about condoms, that's actually one of the misinformation that is going around out there, is that there is this homework assignment that's given, and it's absolutely not. And it's made very clear. Every single health teacher in this county goes through 30 hours of training to even start teaching health. And then they also have annual continuing education that they have to do on this. So for some reason, there's a tremendous amount of misinformation getting out there, which is why I called Ashley myself and asked a lot of these questions as a parent. Now, my oldest child is in 4th grade, so I'm not there yet, but I will be. Mm-hmm. And I care about this. And I don't just care about it for my kids. I care about it for everybody's kids.
Well, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I totally agree with caring about it for everybody's kids. And, we've chosen to educate our kids in our own personal way, in our Christian home and environment, in a safe place with people that I know and I trust. But I don't think that all people would agree that it would be somebody else's job to do that. And I really feel like CSE oversteps those boundaries. We were pushing the boundaries before, and then I really am uncomfortable with the fact that the World Health Organization is the one that also started this program outside of our country, ushered it in through Gavin Newsom over in California, and he signed it into law before anybody else had a chance to put their eyes on it. It really makes me uncomfortable, especially with the World Health Organization and the things that have gone down with this whole coronavirus, the questionable things that they have come up with and said and done, and now we're not even funding them. Why are we even involved with them?
I think this is one of the reasons why people, why we have private schools, and, people can choose that option, because these Florida statutes written by our legislators and approved into law require our public schools to teach comprehensive health education.
So but let me give you
Ashley's number.
Where sure those things, I think I've read those statutes, and I think that it's taking it way too far. Yes, I would like her number.
Okay. So again, Ashley Grimes, and her number is 727-588-6346.
And what's her title again? 6346?
She's the Pinellas County School Specialist for Health and Physical Education.
Also,
So she's the lead in this area.
Who is it that comprises the panel of people that is on the board and behind the scenes? How come parents don't have access to that panel of people that review and make the choices for this curriculum?
I think that they should. I think that they should have access. I think that parents should have input. And that's the important thing about a school board member. You should certainly have input through your school board member, which I intend to be somebody who is available and listens and accessible and wants to hear people's thoughts about things. And if there's an opportunity to participate, I'm sorry, Kimberly.
I was going to say that's one of the things that's beautiful about this forum, having this conversation. Jennifer, we so appreciate you joining us today. We do have a few other people waiting tonight. I know you're on your phone and you're multitasking.
I so appreciate you taking
know
the time to answer the questions in the forum in general. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. I do believe we're going to have another person come and join us, so just give us a second for that. Oh, there we go.
Oh, hi, Laura. It's Bianca. I asked the first question.
Oh, hi. Great. Yeah.
I had just a couple of questions I wanted to add to sex ed. First, I think that Jennifer was talking about the high school HOPE curriculum, where they do actually go into quite a bit of detail about contraception, which is more age appropriate for high schoolers. I did the curriculum side by side with my 9th grader in Pinellas virtual last year. But they don't really go that much into sexuality or things like that. They talk about contraception. They talk about abstinence, because we do have an abstinence curriculum. They talk about those options. They talk about the ways you can prevent pregnancy. I think it's an age appropriate curriculum. I think it was a good curriculum. They talk about the body. They talk about problems that men and women can have with their reproductive systems that I didn't know about when I was in my early 20s and would have liked to have known about. And I thought it was a good curriculum for high schoolers. I didn't have concerns with my teenager learning about that. And we are, a Christian family who prefers to talk to our children about things and that. My concern is in Florida, having had kids go through the Florida school system, is they don't teach children early enough about their bodies. I was a teacher in North Carolina in the early 2000s when girls would start puberty in 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade, and their moms don't teach them anything. And that's very scary for girls.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
And so when I talk about age appropriate sexual or reproductive education, I don't think we need to be teaching, 3rd or 4th graders about sex, but we do need to teach them they have some changes coming in their bodies. In the 80s, when I was in elementary school, they did actually teach us that stuff, and then we stopped.
So I was looking at, because I've been looking really closely at this because of all of the questions around health education recently, and it's in 5th grade in the key growth and development. It talks about stages of growth from birth to adulthood, bodily changes that occur during puberty. So this is 5th grade, hygiene during puberty. Social and emotional changes that occur during puberty. So maybe that's been added. I don't know.
Maybe that was since my daughter was in 5th grade. Or I think we got a letter about that, and then that day of school, something happened, and they weren't able to teach that class. It was a 1-day class.
And they didn't make it up.
That's interesting. About it, and it was a 1-day class, and then they canceled it. And I kind of feel like that was an important thing. Like, I feel like it should be a priority, and I think it should probably be earlier than 5th grade.
Interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to have this discussion, because it's been going on in a couple, in one of the other school board discussions, and And I think it's an important thing for us to talk about this year.
I do too. And to clarify, to be like really clear, I look forward to, I mean, if I'm successful, one of the first things I want to do is kind of hold roundtables kind of around the county and listen. You know, we've been doing a lot of talking during this election situation, and I can't wait to listen a lot more. So I hope we can touch base again.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Laura.
Of course.
Laura, that kind of leads into a question. What is your, you said you thought about having, you know, roundtables and whatnot, and how does that lead into what an effective school board member looks like for you?
So I definitely think an effective school board member needs to reach out and listen and ask the people who they serve, you know, what their concerns and ideas and questions and things like that are. I also think an effective school board member needs to have some experience in their own right within the public education system and be invested in the public education system personally. You know, and I say that when I say invested, my 2 children are in public school. And so you bet your bottom, I'm going to work my tail off. But like I said earlier, not just for my kids. I feel bad saying this in public, but it's never been about my kids because they're going to be fine. But it's been about that I know we have amazing opportunities to make education much better for many more kids. I've studied it. I'm trying to implement it at our particular school. I've met Jeffrey Canada from Harlem Children's Zone. I've spent time in Academy Prep. I've studied, again, a number of different models. I just finished this amazing book called What Schools Could Be. And I just know that we can do more. So I do think that a school board member should have some, should have experience themselves in public schools and not just as a student when they were growing up. I also think that having some leadership experience is important. Pinellas County Schools, there's 14,000 employees and 100,000 students. It's a significant scale. And so having some leadership experience matters there. I know I mentioned I was in the Navy. I'm currently the CEO of an organization. So, and then all the various projects that I was responsible for over the years. I mean, I've had the great opportunity, I've loved it, to lead a number of people and be responsible for goals and missions and budgets and those kinds of things. So I do think that that's useful to have leadership experience. And then I think I bring something new to the board, which is financial experience. I mentioned I have an MBA in finance. I've managed hundreds of millions of dollars of projects. Tom James, who's one of the top business leaders in our area, if not the world, asked me to be a CEO of his organization. So of his museum, not Raymond James Financial.
Clarification.
But so I think so all those qualifications are good and they matter when it comes to this massive budget and a system of scale. I really think the most important thing about me is my personal investment, is that I've shown up. I have shown up at my local D school, sent my kids there. I don't believe in this grading system. I have learned about this grading system. I believe in our teachers. That is what I believe in. And I believe that we can have a significant amount of positive change. So I think having somebody who wants to lead schools and be part of them matters. I really don't think that you can lead something that you're not willing to be part of. That's a significant thing to me.
For sure. You mentioned in your response to one of the other participants that your son was in 4th grade. What about is it your daughter or another son? I didn't catch that one.
Another son. I'm not sure how that happened. I'm one of 2 sisters, so I always imagined I'd have girls. Of course, we all know it doesn't work that way, thanks to sex ed maybe, but I have 2 boys, and I have one in 4th grade and one in 1st grade. So I'm in it for the long haul. This is also a reason why I've really tried to make a number of relationships at the high school level and at the middle school level, because I haven't necessarily had that personal hands-on experience. So I've specifically tried to make those relationships, and I will continue to do so. But we also have people up at Pinellas County Schools who are experts in this area, right? And so you have people who are the 9 through 12 social studies lead. You have people who are the middle school lead for music, or, so there are people who have been doing this for their whole careers, which I think is why it really is about leadership. I mean, the element of knowing how to work with a team of people who are already subject matter experts, but maybe they need some inspiration, some drive, some talk about mission, some talk about ideas of how could we do things a little bit differently. I think it's interesting. Is there another question, or can I just keep talking? Because I have something else that
we have another question, but
okay.
Do you want to sum up what you were going to say real quick?
I just think there are a lot of ideas that we could follow up on, and I would be excited to bring those to the board and ask for us to do this work.
Okay, love that excitement. I'll get our next question going for us. So what is your opinion of the 1619 project?
So the 1619 project, for those that might not be aware of it, was a project done by the New York Times Magazine a little over a year ago now. It's an amazing magazine, by the way. If you haven't read it, it's extremely thoughtful and thorough, and documents and a variety of different kinds of things. And what it does is the year 1619. What's important that comes out through this work is we now have a bill of lading. We now have direct primary source information that shows that that's the first ship that arrived from Africa with Africans who were then sold into slavery here in the United States. And so that's where the timeline starts when it comes to the 1619 project. Now that was this publication. It was then taken by the Pulitzer Center and turned into different age levels, grade levels of curriculum, if schools so chose to use some of this curriculum in their schools. I think that, when we're choosing our curriculum, as was mentioned earlier, there is a wide range available out there. And I might also mention to people that, again, in the state statutes, it actually requires us in letter H here to teach the history of African Americans, including the history of African peoples before the political conflicts that led to the development of slavery, the passage to America, the enslavement experience, abolition, and the contributions of African Americans to society. Instructional materials shall include the contributions of African Americans to American society. So there's a whole section here specifically on this, and that is currently taught. We currently teach a number of things. There is no agenda item on the table. I think what's come up about the 1619 project is some people have said, oh, we're going to take the whole thing and we're going to supplant all of our history curriculum with the 1619 project curriculum. That's not on the table. Now, might there be different pieces that are pulled, and will we certainly acknowledge the arrival of the first ship? Yes, it's part of our discussions now, and they might have some new primary source documents that are available for our students to read now. We go all the way back to discovery. We go all the way back to, early American peoples, all the way through then the first kind of Euro arrival, whether it's 1492, whether it's Jamestown 1602, all those pieces. So we go through all of it. We also go through westward expansion as we move the Native Americans. I'm the CEO of a Western and Wildlife Museum, so I have strong interest in how we're teaching history when it comes to indigenous peoples as well. And there are amazing resources out there. So there's this museum called NMAI, the National Museum of the American Indian, which is one of the Smithsonian museums up in Washington. And they have incredible resources. And I'm hoping we're using some of those resources in our classrooms. So I think similarly, 1619 could be an area of resources when it comes to that project that was developed. So my opinion of the 1619 project is it's potentially additional resources to be used, but on the element of where people say this is going to wholly supplant our curriculum, I don't think it is, but I very strongly believe in that we have a fact-based, multicultural teaching of our history. I'm also excited. Pinellas County Schools stood up this summer, and it came from a number of students who were interested in saying, hey, are we teaching a intercultural curriculum. And we want to be part of that assessment. So we actually now have a inclusive curriculum study underway. It includes a handful of our professionals from Pinellas County Schools, some students. It includes the Carter G. Woodson African American Museum, the Holocaust Museum. It includes professors from University of South Florida, University of Florida, who are all taking now a holistic look at all of our curriculum to see if in fact it is inclusive. When I was talking to Kevin Hendrick, who is the head of teaching and learning at Pinellas County Schools, about this question, because I care about it, he used a phrase that I thought was really interesting. He said, we encourage our teachers to ensure that their classroom, that their materials includes mirrors and windows. Every student should have mirrors and windows. Well, what does that mean? And he said, a mirror is when a student can see themselves in what they're learning. And a window is when they can look and see someone else's experience. And I thought that was amazing. So when a teacher is looking out of their classroom, looking at all the different kids and everything, making sure that they have mirrors and windows, I thought was good. So I care about intercultural curriculum. So that was probably a long answer, but just like sex ed, I feel like 1619, there are these little snippet answers being given, and there are these little snippet things where people want us in this environment in today's day and age to either say, I am pro 1619, or I'm anti 1619, or I am pro this, or it is not that clear cut, everyone. And so I'm sorry I'm giving such long answers, but I want to give some context to what these things really are, what they mean. The context matters, the nuance matters.
I love that answer. I do want to say something. Kevin Hendricks is a great man. I love the way that he's taking charge in that. The idea of windows, mirrors, and sliding doors is actually Dr. Bishop's work from many years ago. And so I just want to make sure that we're citing Black women and that we're leading that knowledge where it goes.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Somebody else just made that same comment. So yeah. I love that even in this space where we're learning new things. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Take a breath and get another question going for you if you're ready for it.
Sure, I'm ready.
All right, so we'll kind of just go over to achievement now. And what is the status of student academic achievement in Pinellas County?
So specific achievement wide or achievement gap. I know, and I think it's important that we discuss the achievement gap, which is so about 4 years ago in 2016, Pinellas County Schools started their first Bridging the Gap plan, which is bridging the gap between white and non-white students when it comes to academic success. And this is a topic that I care a great deal about. Again, as I got involved in our school, and it was this D-graded school, and I said, well, what does that mean? And every year since then, I have charted, whenever the school grades come out, I make a chart of the school grades versus the percent minority and the percent economic disadvantage in a school. And you won't be surprised to know that there's a direct line correlation, right? So the A schools have a much lower percent minority and a much lower percent economic disadvantage, and the direct line goes from there. So I would say that those concerns regarding student achievement are the reason I got involved in public education, recognizing some significant opportunities that we have in front of us. And I really think that the next 100 years here in America are going to be what we make of it. And for it to be amazing, we have to unleash the capabilities, the innate capabilities of our Black and brown children the way we have our white children. And education is the cornerstone of this possibility. So in the Bridging the Gap plan, it's a strong plan, and they are measuring. There are 6 different factors in it. 2 of them are really about just kind of what the direct achievement currently is, and then the other 4 include things like access to advanced coursework. Are they being identified for advanced coursework as early as the non-Black students? There's a gross disparity in student discipline. So when you look at the number of referrals and the number of out-of-school suspensions, they have started tracking this and have made some gains over the last 4 years, which is good. But even still, Black students are 2 times more likely to be referred and 4 times more likely than white students to receive out of school suspension. So they're still looking at this and trying to drive, achieve more of a 1-0 ratio there. It also measures if there's a disparity in ESE, exceptional student services identification, and then also looking at minority hiring and retention. About 18% of our students are Black, and about 8% of our instructional staff is Black. So looking at that. Now, I think in addition to those things, some things that we very much need to do first is early childhood education. This is the place. Now, we did start, VPK, and there's even a little bit of pre-K3 that started, a number of years ago. It's just not enough. You can't have a 3-hour program. I mean, what are those families doing? Dropping their child off, going to a yoga class and coming back and picking them up. I mean, if we're going to do preschool, let's do preschool. And so, there are so many studies that demonstrate that even by 5 years old, this achievement gap is recognized. There was a report last year in 2019 from Georgetown University called Born to Win, School to Lose. It's a painful title. And it demonstrates that, so a group of kindergartners coming in, the top quartile, the top socioeconomic quartile of those students, 74% of them score above average in a little math assessment. Of the lower socioeconomic status quartile, only 26% of those students achieve in the higher math gains area. This is by 5 years old, by kindergarten. So early childhood education is a crucial area. I also think racial bias and training throughout our schools has to continue. There's been some great work with Hillary Van Dyke and our equity champions work. There's more. We already talked about the intercultural, inclusive coursework. I believe strongly in an extended day being available with opportunities for enrichments. That this is a model that Academy Prep implements, and it's had amazing impacts and on their students. We actually have done it at our elementary school. We now have 16 after-school programs that are scholarshiped and provide transportation home. And then I think kind of wrap around social and community service is really important too. But I do think looking at student achievement, and specifically at the student achievement gap, matters, and raising all students and making sure that we're, giving everyone, what they need to thrive. And that includes changing our environment. Again, I know I mentioned in my opening remarks about shifting from this anesthetizing, data-based mindset into a whole child thriving mindset. And I think that that's a really important piece that is going to help all students thrive.
So that was a great answer. Certainly very elaborate, detailed. Some of the things that you're saying, you mentioned like after school programs and the enrichment things, and your school able to provide transportation kind of leads into our next question. And I think it's probably going to be our last one just given the time, but it does deal with the budget. And so I'm going to invite that question onto the screen. How will you help the PCS employees with the annual cost of benefits increase each year?
That is a great question, Kimberly. I don't think people understand that the annual cost of even simply benefits is as simple as it is. I will never forget last year, I was at a Cafe Con Tampa talk where Chris Latvala was speaking, and he sits on the K-12 appropriations committee, and he talked with great excitement about how they'd increased the base student allocation. And I did the math on how much he said it was, and they had increased it by about 1.4%. And inflation in the state of Florida last year was 2.44%. So they aren't even keeping up with inflation. If you're not keeping up with inflation, how are we going to keep up with core costs like the cost of benefits, much less cost of salaries, cost of cost of everything, right? Cost of materials. When it comes to inflation, that applies to everything. So I absolutely think when it comes to education funding, we have some significant improvements to make. And there are, a number of ideas out there. The school board, of course, doesn't levy taxes, but what we did do was we developed that referendum a number of years ago, right? And that is absolutely amazing. And so we can look at ideas as a county if we want to try to better fund our education here, but understand that the state of Florida is the 4th largest economy in this country, and we are the 46th in education funding. Now, Article 9 of the state constitution says that public education is a high priority and says that we should be providing quality education through a system of public schools. Well, if you look at that fact that we are the 4th largest and we're the 46th in education funding, does that sound like education is a high priority? So there, I think there is a lot to talk about here with funding. I am glad you talk about this specifically, and I'd be glad to talk with you more about the budget. I know that you have another debate coming up soon, so I don't want to go on. I appreciate you having me here tonight. Laura, I'm Laura Hine. Again, it's the District 1 race, so it's the county-wide race, and I'll tell you, it's a hot one. So if you support me, I'd appreciate you spreading the word, telling your friends to vote. I do have a website. It's votelaurahine.com, and I'm on Facebook under the same name, Vote Laura Hine. And I care about our schools, and I will work my tail off for our kids, for our teachers, and for public education.
Well, we certainly appreciate your time. We are going to get ready to transition over to the next debate for District 7, which is with Caprice Edmond and Carl Nurse, live at 7. So we have a few minutes, so our viewers can, take a few minutes to digest what you were saying as they go get a drink and then come back at 7 to watch that. But we definitely appreciate this conversation that we were able to have tonight with you.
I appreciate it too, Kimberly, and it's nice to be with you. It's nice to be with everyone. I hope to have more of these conversations. I'm not sure there's anything I enjoy talking about more than education. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, everyone. I will see you at 7 p.m. for our next forum.